So no pressure, okay. What we got then, so pledge. Rory, how many now? 158 businesses? 158. Yeah, any pledgees in the room? Yeah. Did you all get your stickers? No. But, Rory, did they get though?
You got them all.
Did they get the official sweatshirt? No? Wow.
That was just for you.
Yeah? Best 20 quid I've ever spent on him. Right, who's the pledgees? Let's have a look. Wonderful stuff. Thank you for that. So first of all, we've got Jonathan, Chief Exec South Tyneside Council, Jonathan Chew. And actually, Jonathan will be here to be keen to hear your thoughts on the business community. So we'll take a few questions, maybe a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, our colleagues here from the Customs House, if you want to hear from anybody, okay, in the business community, Dame Bella Balcock would be perfect, wouldn't she? Yeah, she has her finger on the pulse.
So I understand. Well, I do.
Is anyone go to the Panto this year? Yeah. Just don't go alone if you do go and see Dame Bella. So Jonathan, be keen to hear from the business community. So yeah, got a couple of questions, time for a couple of questions. Jonathan, how about we start with you? Okay. Pledge. Aims of the pledge, the vision of the council. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Ian. And look, thanks for having me along. It's great to see you all. And it's always struck me actually in the past 18 months since joining the council, I think we've got to build up our business networks organically in South Tyneside. It feels like this approach to supporting each other and coming together in this way is necessary actually for the borough. I don't necessarily always feel we're well served by regional and national networks, and happy to expand on that. But this kind of bottom-up initiative, if you like, is fantastic, and thanks for the work you've done over the years, I understand. Secondly, apologies from Councillor Tracy Dixon, Leader of the Council. She was really keen to be here tonight. She's up in Edinburgh at a national event, but she really did stress to me that everything I'm going to talk to you about is one agenda, really, with the political leadership of the Council, and I know there'll be other opportunities for Tracy to talk to you. And there were lots of Council colleagues here, Sarah, Rory and the wider team, lots of people from different professional perspectives within the council, and do pipe up, folks. Please do have an opinion and help me out if I get into trouble shortly. So I will answer your question about the pledge, Ian, but let me wistfully jump back briefly. So just to think back, so I joined the council in autumn 21, which wasn't that long ago, but it still feels very strange to think back. We were still cancelling our Christmas dues because of COVID variants. There was still a concerted agenda around business support, resident support, a huge push and partnership with the VCS around vaccinations and everything we did around community support. So it's amazing to think we were still in weekly COVID emergency meetings, and we're into the gold, silver, bronze structure and all of that. So the agenda that I walked into is very much around well-being, people's mental health, that kind of support, and tackling those inequalities that COVID had exacerbated in South Tyneside. Since then, you know, global and national turmoil, really. You know, we've had 3 prime ministers, incredibly different and difficult economic context for businesses to work in. I know what a year. It's been incredibly hard to keep pace with that. But just to share with you, I hope that you've seen the council focus on a number of key things. And there were 3 things I wanted to talk to you about from last year that feed into the pledge. So we tried to engage, we tried to reset the vision, and we tried to build a different organisational and I think partnership culture in the borough. So just briefly, we've done a lot nationally, and working with Rory and colleagues who are here, we can expand on that. The work we've tried to do candidly around lobbying, working with national media like the Financial Times, working with think tanks, trying to promote the growth opportunity in the borough and garner government support. It's a rollercoaster week, bit of a patchy week in terms of national support, and again I'm happy to be relatively indiscreet about that, while conscious I'm being recorded and live streamed. We've clearly worked really hard with our regional partners. I would like to see that as a big shift in the council's approach to regional partnership. Again, really happy to talk about devolution tonight and get your honest appraisal of where we are and what we could do together around Devo in the future. But then locally, most importantly, I think, from spring through summer, we had the South Tyneside Conversation, engaged thousands of people in that conversation. I know we have Business Network and other events to build towards that new vision. And for me, there are products from those kind of things. But I think particularly after COVID, a lot of that was about connection with people. I think the Summer Festival is always amazing here, but it was particularly important over the last year. We had the return of the Great North Run. So I think building that trust with people through engagement was a big part of what we set out to do. Secondly, we reset that vision. You know, I think the previous vision had really served the borough well. Certainly when I used to work up here from about 2000 onwards, I could see the capital development in the borough. I could see the change in terms of investment and the economic shift with big developments around IAMP and the physical infrastructure in the place. I think because of what I've just said, I think we had to build a new vision that was relevant for the times, that was connected to people and showed, like Tracy often talks about, from projects to people as our little ethos. And I hope you see and participated in that new vision, what we're trying to do for people to connect them to the economy, bolster their skills, pathways, and really help them coming out of COVID have fulfilled lives. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then thirdly, around culture, we had a concerted effort within the council, but I would very much hope that you've started to see that change and benefit from that change. So a lot around values. We spent a lot of time with colleagues working on what our organisational values should be coming out of COVID, thinking about the behaviours that flow from that, and starting to focus strongly actually around organisational development, culture and equalities for the first time in a long time, I think, for the council, and working with our partners on those. You know, this is a place with enormous civic and personal pride. I think that is something I've always known about South Tyneside, but again, it really hit me coming back to the region after a decade. So our council values are structured around that now. We talk about everybody in the council being proud. That's professional, respectful, open and honest, understanding and engaging, and delivering on what we say we will. And again, we're rolling that out as all good private sector organisations would do through a proper cascade down the organisation as we go into this year. And I often say to people, look, you've got to bring your whole self to work. You've got to be authentic. You know, if you're a carer, you need to talk about that with the organisation and not feel you need to present a different side of yourself when you're in work. So we're really trying to open up a different way of behaving, different ways of working, and bringing that through. So I hope that gives you a flavour, Ian, of what we've been doing. I'd be disappointed if everyone in the room is surprised by that or hasn't been part of at least part of those conversations, particularly around the engagement stuff we've done and vision. So finally, answering your question, look, the pledge for me sits very comfortably in the context of that new vision. So the vision is around people living happy, healthy and fulfilled lives in South Tyneside. And the themes that fall out from it are around financial security, health and well-being, connected to jobs, working in and living in strong communities, but tackling inequalities to make things fairer. Now, for me, they're things that resonate with where we are as a country and where people are in their lives at the moment, which we know is an incredibly difficult time. They're not the kind of things that you just roll forward 10 years after another 10 years after another 10 years, and you could be in Milton Keynes or you could be in a core city. They feel to me to be right for the evidence base and what people have said to us in South Tyneside. And we're gearing all of our plans and working with our partners to think about the investments and choices we make against that vision. And for me, the pledge also chimes really nicely actually with the traditional industrial culture in South Tyneside. I think in policy terms, you'd now call it community wealth building or social value or inclusive growth. But when you actually think back to the pits and the ships and the way that local supply chains always used to operate, it operated on the basis of those community-based values and profit and growth working for the community. And I don't think it's a lot more complicated than that, Ian. It's almost just trying to put a new lens on that in relation to the nature of the businesses that we now have in the borough and what some of our future growth sectors are starting to emerge from. So I think all colleagues here, particularly those pledgees, will know what it's about. But look, it's about basically local activity and practical steps that help the borough thrive. There's a particular emphasis on not trying to overlay here a load of performance targets or charters that you need to meet every criteria around or sign up to all sorts of onerous reporting arrangements. It's quite an emergent network-based thing where it's about sharing practice and having that little leap of faith on what you feel comfortable doing if it works for your business, and then learning and stretching as we go. Really simply, there are three core components to the pledge. It's around spend, it's around recruitment, and it's around community support and network support. So just unpacking some of those, clearly on spend, social value and local procurement is a big part of what we're trying to encourage, but also supporting smaller organisations to be able to bid and access opportunities that traditionally may have been just the domain of bigger organisations, and encouraging staff to spend local. I think our high streets agenda in our towns and villages is a big part of that local spend. And I think there's some really interesting things post-COVID around modern ways of working, where people are starting to distribute their spend patterns differently according to that agility and flexible ways of working. Secondly, it's about hiring local people and everything that entails in terms of bringing our own people through, so apprenticeships, and helping people with skills pathways. But we've been explicit that we know there are cohorts of people in our communities that have been further from work historically. So whether you're talking about care experienced young people or people with learning disabilities, we've been explicit that there are some cohorts in our population that would help us all collectively by being in work, stretch further and faster. And we know that presents all sorts of different challenges in terms of support and management oversight, but we want to help those people access employment and have a fulfilled life. And then finally, around the support strand, we're talking actively with the voluntary sector around working differently with business. I think there's a big piece there around promoting volunteering in the private sector. But also, because we are in South Tyneside, the climate net zero sustainability agenda cuts through all of us. It's a belief system, really, that I think is held here more deeply than anywhere I've lived or worked. You know, people really care about the river, the ocean, and our green spaces, and sustainability and net zero is a big part of what we're about as a wider public sector. So again, it's about promoting that while capitalising on our cultural offer. So I know we were joking about Dame Bella, but again, part of this is promoting and being passionate about South Tyneside on behalf of the wider borough. So look, I'll start to wind down now. I know you've got some facts at your fingertips. I'm armed with all sorts of brilliant examples about what businesses are doing, and I can bore you to tears under questions. And I'm very happy to open up with slightly wider reflections on devolution in the economy. But first, I'll give you and colleagues a word in edgeways.
No, thanks, it's good. I really do appreciate that comprehensive background. It's interesting because that's a lot of things that the council's doing. But what do we need to do, Jonathan, as business? You know, we need to kind of meet you halfway, if you like, and obviously that's the pledge as well. So I have got some impact, which I will shout out, because we have met you. But from, you know, the council's point of view, what do we need to do?
That's interesting in terms of framing. I think it's a partnership, isn't it? It's not about us having unreasonable expectations of the private sector or implying that the private sector and businesses aren't already doing a great deal, because, as I say, they are. And more than anything, I think we understand the context in which you're operating, with inflationary effects, Brexit, supply chain, workforce, you know, incredibly different environment just to stay in business. So I certainly don't want this to be misheard as some kind of unreasonable pitch about our level of expectation. I think it's about a partnership to explore what you can do against this, to make sure that there's a circular economy benefit and an inclusive economy benefit to some of the things that you are doing in terms of investment. Being a bit more humble about it, I've certainly reflected recently that I think we need to come in alongside you to help navigate what you would have called CSR, you might now call ESG, whatever you call it, around social principles and the social impact from business. I think we need to help you navigate that. You know, with Victoria and Matt at the port, we've talked about almost developing a prospectus around those things where we help make those connections. So, you know, it's easy for me to say we've got 299 children in our care at the moment, you can give them a job, but actually it's easy for me to say that tritely I think we need a proper partnership that helps you do that, helps connect with those young people, helps wrap around them the right kind of support offer so that employment is sustainable. And the same is true on all sorts of parts of and different demographies within the borough. So I think it's proper partnership. I think the principles are clear, and what we probably need to do, and we are doing it, but through some of our shared prosperity fund investments, actually we're stepping up more almost business engagement capacity, so we can sit next to you and help with that network and that bridge to what some of these opportunities might be. And I think particularly when you're looking at people like Equinor and big investors who are coming into the borough to drive some of those new growth sectors, I really do think we need to get them up to speed with the borough and help make some of those links, but really importantly help local SMEs connect to those opportunities. And again, I'm happy to expand on that later, but yeah, the summary would be let's do it as a proper partnership, really, I think, Ian.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And if anyone has any ideas about the pledge, Kelvin, I'll come into a second. You know, have a little think, and we can ask Jonathan here. We've got him here, so rather than send an email, let's ask the man himself. But let's talk about some impact. So 50 new apprentices created from pledgees. Nearly 20 organisations giving talks in schools, providing work experience or attending careers fairs. Over 17 organisations now doing more volunteering. 10 organisations have signed up to the Better Health at Work Award. 10 organisations increasing their use of local suppliers. And 10 organisations expanding their presence in South Tyneside over the past year. So that's just a snapshot. And we've got some pledgees here on the panel, but I'll open it up to the floor, actually, while I've got Jonathan. Kelvin, I know you wanted to say something. Do you want to say it really succinctly? I'll say it back into the microphone so our friends at home can hear it. Is that all right?
I do not who that like. A question. There are several successful and fledgling networking organisations based in South Tyneside, and I would call them networking hubs. Yeah. Have you considered, perhaps on occasions, to look at inviting those other hubs into the pledge without necessarily confirming that they're going to join, and looking at it from the point of a super hub occasionally to bring other networking groups in to network more efficiently, perhaps? What are your views?
I'll try and summarise that. I think Kelvin wants a super hub. So Kelvin, if I can unpack that a little bit, there is lots of small, Chamber of Commerce. We've got Advanced Manufacturing Forum, which Al, I'm sure will tell us about. We've got lots of sort of membership organisations. Are you talking about maybe getting them to speak a little bit more together and communicate?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily all the time, but to bring other organisations into the pledge as invitees to perhaps enable those companies to be able to network more efficiently and more effectively.
Okay, I can see Rory scribbling away furiously, but Jonathan, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, anything that I think sees business talk to business about these principles is more credible, candidly, than people like me sitting on stages preaching about health inequalities. So I think, as I said earlier, I think if this is a more organic process, where you talk to each other about your experience of these things, what you found easy, what you found hard, and how you could help each other, then absolutely. It's not for me to prescribe how those different business networks come together. But again, if we can help, if we can partner, if we can come in alongside to help people understand what we mean by some of these things and show some of these examples, then great. I think when you're talking about regional and national bodies, I know, like any bigger organisations, it can be hard to operate in a bespoke way within a certain geography, but we need to try and we need to make people understand what it means to do business here, and I would very much hope that the consensus is we operate according to these principles. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Jonathan. Would anyone else like to ask Jonathan a question before we move on to our panel members? Yes, sir?
Should I introduce who I am? Or just
You can. It's a good time to plug, isn't it? Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I'm James Crowder. I run the Vocational Centre in Jarrow. I've had the privilege of working with Steve recently on one of our projects. I wrote down, and I'll try and be succinct, I'm not
No, you're fine.
But I'll give it a go. I just wrote down that you were interested in working in partnership, particularly with hard-to-reach and disadvantaged people. And I represent like that cohort of young people, particularly in our borough, a lot of care leavers and people being excluded from schools and alternative provisions. And we train with like vocational qualifications for construction mechanics and engineering, and hopefully further. And I worked this year, made a Christmas tree, and Steve has helped me display it this year. We are hoping that we can expand that. And what we struggle with is giving our students a vision and seeing them as part of the borough and seeing how they can have success in their lives. So I'm trying to make an actual question here because it's not making sense.
So disadvantaged students,
yeah,
James?
So I'd like to know really if we can get some support in raising the aspirations of young people, particularly those that feel like they don't have a vision for their future. Particularly because in our borough, there's a vast proportion of students, isn't there, that have been hardly hit by like COVID and the crisis.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for what you're doing first and foremost, because that sounds tremendous. And then every time Rory arms me with stats, the one thing I always look at is the unemployment rate for younger people. And it's always far higher than any of us are comfortable with. And I think you're right that coming out of COVID, it's been a particular challenge. And as the economic signals kind of generally stabilise or improve, that does feel like a residual challenge that we've got to come around in the borough. And I know we're an outlier regionally as well on that. So we need to keep going, don't we? And I think some of it is about the education system and how it works collectively to support those young people. Particularly those that are perceived to have almost fallen through academic gaps and, as you say, focus on vocational opportunities. I was talking to Keir the other day about what they're aspiring to do around a roofing apprenticeship, almost like an academy, really, because they can see the workforce problem for them because they can't recruit roofers and there's no hub in that particular skill set within this part of the region. So again, I think we need to almost find the alignment between what do businesses need and work with people like yourself to get young people skilled up and into those pathways. I must say, I think devolution would help. You know, I think when you look at what North of Tyne have done since they've had skills devolution, they've been able to take all the information that nationally the Department for Education used to have around providers of skills and people who were benefiting and sieve the whole thing and make sure it worked for their geography. And you wouldn't be surprised to hear many providers were outside the Northeast. Some of the people benefiting from that funding were outside the Northeast. It didn't actually do what it was intended to do. And they've seen a real marked step change in skills levels, vocational and academic skills, through having local oversight and control of that approach. So that's one of the things Tracy Dixon and myself are really focused on, actually. We want to try and take hold of that for the region and for the borough and make sure that the investment in the skills system is working for our people. But I'd love to talk to you offline and catch up if there's anything we can do, because I think some of that's about role modelling as well, isn't it? And giving people the confidence that if they've seen other people do it within the borough, then they can do it too. And I think particularly politically, there are loads of opportunities to give that some real prominence in what we do in South Tyneside. So really happy to help.
Before we had this meeting, before I came here, I sat with some of my students just to think about what I could ask you lot. And one of them said it's just a matter of people showing up and showing that they care, or even showing interest. Is what I get is I take my young people to a job fair or anything like that, and the main thing that we battle against is that they don't feel like they belong because no one's interested in them. Yeah. And it's always emotional for me when I say that, because it's how I feel when I was growing up. But as Steve would probably testify to, if any of you can come down and just have a look at the work that they're doing, that would help us a lot, just showing that the community around them is interested in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Steve, do you want to come in?
Yeah, look, I mean, I suppose providing opportunities for people that currently don't necessarily get the opportunities that they deserve it is really important to me. Going right back to the day when I wrote the previous vision for this council about 25 years ago. But some of those things are still there, and it's still a well-being element. And for me, I see our opportunity to work where those gaps are, and I think that's what's important. You know, as all right, the Football Club's foundation, which I lead, is a social enterprise. You know, so we work where maybe it's not profitable enough for the private sector, but where we're not grant dependent in terms of some of the other putting strain on other sectors. But having that opportunity to provide things that aren't necessarily there, I think the football club is in a significant position and a place of privilege to be able to do that, which is why we engaged with James, and to go down and see what the young people are doing, and to show that people value what they're doing, and that you know, whatever kind of history they've kind of had, that doesn't matter. It's about the future, and it's about what they're bringing to that project. And you can see the enthusiasm, you can see the quality in the work that they can do, and if you work with them, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't find a successful outcome. You know, and that's something we've just engaged with, and you know, we're going to talk a little bit later about one of the other projects that we've done too. And for us, you know, that's just something that we can put back. And if I think about the pledge, and you know, again, apologies, Jeff can't be here today, but I know he shares this view, is that the opportunity to bring the football club back to the town and to make a contribution has always been part of that. And if we can create an infrastructure and an environment where we can do that, then that's exactly what we're going to do, and what we've done to a degree. And I think the pledge, and I know the rest of the people here all kind of said the same thing, and you've said it too, Jonathan, that the thing about this is it's something that's inherently within us, people from around here. That values match for us with the pledge was absolutely something we wanted to do anyway. You know, so to be able to do that with others, and have that humility to defer to others who would be able to contribute to that, is absolutely what we wanted to do. That's why we signed it. That's why we signed it early on. And you know, we're absolutely committed to ensuring that moves forward and progresses.
It's interesting because I'm really pleased to see everyone here tonight, and we need to do more of that. We need to get out and create relationships, and it's fabulous to hear that you're both working together. And how did that come about? How did that relationship come about? It
was. Do you know what it is? I think the thing about the football club is, I think where we add value is around engagement.
Okay.
So, you know, we're a football club. We're pretty neutral. We don't have an agenda. We're not going to force you to do stuff that you know, and judge you for whether or not you do it. But I think just because we were there and we're showing interest, and we just had a conversation. I think you rang me. And said, look, we've got the young people have made a Christmas tree out of materials that were donated by the construction companies that they work with. And what they wanted to do was an opportunity to showcase it. And so what I said was, well, look, we've got a Christmas tree light switch on at Heart and Welfare with Westow Brass Band playing. Why, bring it down, you know, and we'll show it to people. And we just had a little sign made that went with it that said, this is the work of the students, this is what we can do. And we also showcased some fantastic barbecues and things that the students had made as well. And you know, it's just that enabling, giving people the opportunity to get their foot in the door. And I think that's where we can contribute. And it was just a chance conversation that we said, right, well, look, this is something we can do something about, so let's do it.
Yeah.
It was Terry Hannon, wasn't it?
Terry, that's right. Yeah. Places for
people.
people.
I was asking Terry who would be a good connection for me to use.
Brilliant. And that leads to my point earlier on, Jonathan, when I said, you know, it's up to us as well to come halfway and to make those relationships. No one's going to kind of do it for us. We have to forge them ourselves as well. Wonderful, good stuff.
Hey, it's nothing to have a conversation. You know, what it does is I think the difference is, you know, having the humility to listen to other people and then following through and you know, to link to the values that you said earlier. You know, actually doing something about it. You know, it doesn't have to cost millions. It doesn't have to take weeks. You know, each and every little thing counts.
Well, that was a nice little segue into Steve, wasn't it? So how about you tell us about the foundation? I know local procurement, something you're really interested in as well.
Yeah, look, I think under Jeff's chairmanship, you know, the football club, since it came back to the town from a little spell in Peterlee, it's an organisation where it doesn't really make any sense for South Shields Football Club not to be in South Shields as part of South Tyneside. So by that definition, then, you know, buying locally, creating employment locally, creating opportunities for people to participate in things that affect their health and well-being, it is naturally part of what we do. So it aligns with the pledge. You know, Jeff has taken the football club forward significantly, both in terms of performance and progression of the Football League, although he hasn't managed the team, but you know what I'm saying. But in terms of the investment he's put in to facilitate that, there's about £5 million worth of investment in the facilities. And wherever he could, he's tried to procure that, you know, locally or regionally, and I think on a day-to-day basis, the sorts of things that the club does and the needs it has for servicing the facilities that we've got, both at First Cloud Arena and at Harton Miners Welfare, means that our preference would be to work local and to employ local. You know, and about 85% of the people we employ are from the town. You know, and that again is important to us because we're rooted in that community.
I want to see a show of hands of who's been to a South Shields Football Club match.
Okay.
Now,
we'll have to see what we can do about that. I'm sure that if we can rustle up some tickets for some of our upcoming games, come and enjoy an experience with us and come back.
Sound good? Yeah.
As long as you sign the pledge once you've read.
Well, actually, thinking about that then, the business club, you know, you guys have brought the business club on. Tell us a little bit about that, because obviously you've got lots of different pillars within the football club, and business has now become one of those.
Yeah, so I mean, so to add to Kelvin's kind of infrastructure of super hubs, yes, we have Mariners Business Club. We through the work that Glenn and Carl and Joanne have done and will do moving forward. I suppose where it came from is the football club for Jeff's investment, you know, wouldn't be where it is now. But also in terms of the sponsors that the football club have that are engaging around a common interest, which in this particular case is football, the club wouldn't be where it is now without them either. And so I suppose what the business club does is an opportunity for those to come together around a shared interest that's maybe something different. You know, we come and enjoy the football, come and network together, come and do what you want to do. But also talk to each other, and if you can trade between organisations that have something in, you know, the most important part of is making a connection with someone. So if you've got a shared connection through the football club, then have a conversation about what you've also got in common in terms of your businesses, and can we promote some intertrade between sponsors? You know, it helps us in that if you're successful in business, you might want to invest a little bit more in the football club, and it helps businesses themselves, you know, because they've got an opportunity to network and they've got an opportunity in a relaxed environment to do that. So yeah, Mariners Business Club, watch this space. Meeting next week, is that right? Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, right? Okay.
Come and join us.
What time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. There you go.
6 p.m. First Cloud Arena.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about skills apprentices. I know you've had in. You've got, I think, about 18 full-time staff now, is there?
Yeah, and I think the other thing about the football club, it's really important to not just think of us as a football club. Mm-hmm. If you think about the elements of football club, yes, there's football and the sports coaching, but you've got some learning going on in there in terms of the 16 to 19 academy. We've got a retail shop, we've got an online shop, you've got quite a big finance function in terms of the various different companies that we offer. We've got grounds maintenance. You know, all of those kind of job roles lend themselves to local employment across a number of different sectors. You know, it's not just about engaging with the club for footballing reasons.
Mm. And there was Epinay
School, yeah.
Project,
so on the back of that, really excited about this project. So Epinay School in South Shields, School for children with special educational needs. We ran a project last year called Epinay Takeover in the build-up to a match day. And I guess where it started was, again, just a conversation. Chris Rue, head teacher, was a former South Shields footballer, so we started talking and came up with the concept of, can we create some opportunities for young people from the school to get experience in work? And now what I said to Chris was, yeah, we'd love to do that, but what I don't want to do is for you to send some of the kids to follow me or one of the other staff around for a fortnight, and then we're finding something for them to do, and then they go away and nobody gets any value out of it. So what we came up with this concept of an Epinay takeover, where we actually handed over bits of the club to the school. And so some of the sports students came and delivered a training session to the first team after a training session at Heart and Welfare. And it's a real thing. It was on telly, if you don't believe me. So we got some of the hospitality students came to Heart and Welfare, and they served the players with breakfast. But the experience we created for them was, you know, the bus came from the school, it came in the car park, they got off the bus and said, right guys, the players are coming in 30 minutes, they'll be wanting some breakfast. And they got on with it. And then that continued into match day, where on match day, some of the young people supported the stewards on a match day in turnstiles. They also did service in hospitality to paying customers. And so... And I mean, I've told this story before, but if you ask me why we did it, there was a girl that came to do the breakfast service at Heart, and when she got off the bus from the school, was visibly kind of shaking. You know, her confidence kind of wasn't there because she felt that she couldn't participate. But she did it, and I said to her at the end, look, when you arrived, what did that feel like? And she said, well, what I do is I carry around a cardboard box, and that's how I manage my autism. You know, when I'm feeling under pressure, I climb inside that cardboard box and I feel safe and secure. I said, okay, so now having done what you've done, been thrown in and served breakfast to the players, now you've done it a couple of days, how do you feel now? She says, well, I'm not in the cardboard box anymore. And look, and that's not a big thing. It's not a big deal. It was just about mindset, about how we approach that experience. But in terms of confidence and impact moving forward, which is the similar conversation we had with James, is can we create those experiences that you know, potentially are, I don't want to exaggerate and say life changing, but maybe they are. You know, someone to show a little bit of confidence in you that you weren't expecting. It can give you a significant boost, and you know, we're hugely excited that Epinay Takeover 2 will be happening in March, and that this year it will be bigger and better, and it will extend to as well as groundskeeping and various different things that they've done before. There'll be kind of pop-up shops and retail and all kinds of things happening. So you know, watch out for that. And it's something that, like I say, it's a small contribution from us that can make a huge difference.
You mentioned there about experience and confidence, and I know volunteering can do that, and I know the club's big on volunteering. Do you want to touch upon that?
Look, I mean, if you think about the football club and where it started, it was historically always been volunteer-led. Yeah. And to a degree, you know, a huge degree, it still is. All right, there's been a number of people employed, which is a good natural progression because it provides a pathway. But the starting point for a lot of that is, you know, the apprenticeships, internships, and volunteering. And so, you know, match day couldn't be delivered, you know, in any kind of affordable way without the support from volunteers. The junior football programs that we deliver, we engage about 900 young people in football every week, outside of the school programs that we deliver. But those 48 teams couldn't operate if we didn't have, you know, 48 coaches who are volunteering their time to work with that young person. And you know, and that's, I guess, where I started with the football club. Was coaching a junior team that my son played for 10 years. You know, that's the sort of thing that you put in, and hugely rewarding. So really important. Players like to do some work as well. We're launching a concept with Porter Time. We've been talking about it for a little while now, whereby we can get the people to contribute 90 minutes of the time, you know, the length of a football match, and put it into somewhere that would benefit from that. But the concept behind it is that we don't just mean come and do a litter pick or come and do some other stuff. We mean use the strengths that you do every day in your job by helping somebody else out who would really value that. And I think the Port of Tyne thing was, if you think about what Port of Tyne does in terms of logistics and organisation. I spoke at the staff conference, and they were talking really heavily about RIDOR events, reportable incidents, that they hadn't had any, and how in such a big operation that was such a significant thing. And what I said to them was, well, look, do you understand that experience of delivering those events safely and without and the logistics around them? We run an event with 2,500 people attending every week. Come and get involved, give us a hand. Yeah, you've got some skills and expertise that you would do naturally and instinctively that you can pass on. And so it's trying to create a volunteer program that enables people to play to their strengths, without necessarily imposing some burden on them by asking them to do something that they wouldn't do naturally.
So there's another pitch.
Yeah.
Any volunteers?
Eight games left,
Any questions for Steve on the club before we move on? Oh, we might be able to catch up some questions at the back end of the event. Angela.
Hello.
Angela is director at Goldfinch Estate Agents. First time I met Angela, she shoved a black bag in my hand, a pair of gloves and a pair of tongs, and said, go and pick up some litter. Because you run litter and laugh walks, don't you? And that was where we first met. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, before I answer that question about how it started, can I ask the audience a question, please? Can I have a show of hands for anybody that is passionate about our marine and our wildlife that we have here in South Tyneside? So the vast majority of people, we live on the coast, we've got the river, and that's pretty much where the Litter and Laugh Walk started for me, being passionate about the impact that litter has and the plastic that we have, and the impact it has on our marine life. Yesterday was a really good experience of that. I was driving down Westall Road near the town hall, rush hour traffic, and there was a bird in the middle of the rush hour traffic, in the middle, trying frantically to stay alive with a plastic bag, a white plastic bag stuck to its leg. And I was horrified because I thought the fear that poor animal, that poor bird would be feeling. So I pulled over, did the due diligence in my head, right? I'm about to run in the middle of the road and try and rescue this bird. Right, let's not get knocked over, there's buses coming both ways. But fortunately, somebody else got there and got the bird in time. I got in, stopped the traffic, and we got the plastic bag off the bird, and to watch it fly away was absolutely incredible. So the Litter and Laugh Walk is a community walk that I brought to life to try and stop the impact of us and our human litter and plastic and the impact that has. And it's not just about picking litter up. We got the community together. We've had friendships made out of it. People, I think we did a beach combing about a year ago, and there was about 40 plus people there, people who had moved to the area, didn't have any friends. So it's so much more than just picking the litter up, but the concept of it, Ian, was always about helping the wildlife and the marine life, because we all have a responsibility for that and to protect them.
Where's the pitch? All them hands? All them hands?
Well, who wants to do Litter and Laugh Walks? So my question, I guess, to everybody, we had to put the walks on hold because of the lockdown. Yeah. We had a community centre where we would always end the walk. They put on the free drinks and we'd all sit about, have a chat, get to know each other. What I had just launched before lockdown was Adopt My Patch, which I was really passionate about, coming out to all the local South Tyneside businesses and seeing if we could get other businesses that would pledge to look after their patch. Okay, so whether that was engaging their teams throughout the day to do maybe a lunchtime litter pick, just basically be responsible. We've seen so many hands that everybody's passionate about our wildlife. Can we have a show of hands of who maybe in the last 6 months has actually done a litter pick or even walked out of the house and picked some litter up? Wow, that's amazing.
Great.
It's become more and more popular now for litter picking. When I first started this walk, 2018, people were like flabbergasted. What, you're an estate agent, you're going out to pick litter up? But, you know, we brought the community together, we had friendships form, and it was the health benefits as well. We got people outside walking and doing good. So I would love to see if anybody else in the room could either join us for the next Litter and Laugh walk, or could even pledge that their business adopts their own patch and takes responsibility for it. Because it's not just South Tyneside Council's, you know, responsibility to go out and collect everybody else's litters. Every single one of us in this room has a moral obligation to look after our streets, and that in turn will stop that poor little bird, you know, or any of the birds or animals facing a death by plastic bags.
Wonderful, thanks, and well done, everyone. So much accountability today. We're all putting our hands up for things. Let's talk about some of the school engagement work you've done then over at Goldfinch. Have you brought them into?
Yes, since we opened Goldfinch 12 years ago now, we've always worked with the schools to support them. So we bring in work experiences, and it's really, I think what you said before, you know, I've seen and spoken to children who they say, oh, we've just been into a business and they've just had us photocopying or sitting making teas and coffees. We get our children, our school children engaged, we get them out on appointments, we inspire them. And that has led on to NVQ qualifications and apprenticeships with us, which has led on to full-time employment. We've started this year off, I posted out on LinkedIn about the pledge and how we support local. We've had an apprentice that he was at sixth form. He wasn't engaged in the sixth form. He wasn't, I think he needed the money, he wanted the money, which you don't get it, but he wanted life experience, and he had a passion for helping people and a passion for property. So I offered to put him on an apprenticeship, and he's just finished his 18 month, and he started a full-time position with us in January, and we're supporting him further with a further qualification. So he's doing a lettings NVQ. So yeah, always have. I think it's important that us local businesses do support the youth. There's a lot of them get, you know, we hear it in the media, don't we, that they home in on the bad kids, but there's so many inspirational kids out there who are really, really eager and keen to get themselves stuck into work and help.
That's a nice segue, because haven't you been involved in the youth justice?
Yes, I've recently signed up through the South Tyneside Pledge. I heard about it. So the Youth Justice is a mentorship, and that's working with what I call children who've kind of gone off-piste. They've maybe not had the support network at home. They haven't had the inspirational leaders around them. They've completely disengaged with school. And I've sat in a lot of forums recently with the police. And one of the questions I asked them was, you know, do you go and work with the schools, with these children who are running around vandalising? You know, what are the consequences, or what is the upshots? What can we do as businesses and local businesses to help these children? And then this came and landed on my emails, and I was like, wow, this is just amazing. If I can mentor a kid who's gone off-piste to try and bring them back, inspire them, then why not? And why can't, you know, if we all did this in our businesses, just 1 hour a week to mentor somebody with a hope that we can bring them in as an apprenticeship, what a difference we make, you know, collectively. And when I was a kid, I didn't have I was brought up on a council estate, but I still had a lot of things outside of school that I could be engaged with. The school youth clubs, we don't have them anymore, unless you've got money to pay your children to go in dance classes and, you know, football and things. And obviously it's brilliant what the football club are doing with regards to the, you know, working with the children. But I think kids have got a rough deal nowadays, and they need inspirational people around them to bring them down the right road and in the right direction. So I'm super excited, and I would love to see if anybody else would be able to offer their time up and literally, you know, help and inspire some children that if they don't get this, what's out there for them, you know?
Another ask. You're going to be so busy. Rory, mentorship, do pledges up? Do you had an email about that?
I have.
Wonderful.
So listen now again.
Yeah, good.
I was super excited when I
Yeah.
seen it, because I just think it's an amazing concept to work with, because we've always supported children, and these children who come to us in their works week, you know, the week's work experience, and then often come on to NVQ apprenticeships or full-time employment, they've got the support in school, they've got the want, they've got the family network, but these children are not necessarily in that capacity. These children that we're going to be mentoring are people who need that extra help and that extra inspiration. Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, Angela. Alan, another active member of the community,
Yep.
a commercial director at Zenith People.
Absolutely, yes.
Come on then, Alan, tell us about Zenith.
Yeah, so first of all, I completely agree with what everybody said there. And just to pick up on your point, if you're not working with Zenith Training at the moment, I'll make sure that you are. But I would like to start by taking you back probably to somewhere 2010, 2011. And there was a supply chain event down at the Little Haven in South Shields, and the council stood up and said, at the moment, we are buying probably 11% of all of our goods and services from within the borough. And our aim is to increase that. We're now at a situation where something like 48% of goods and services are bought from within the borough, which is, I would guess, above the national average. So, you know, that's a tremendous step forward in 12, 13 years. But the other thing that I picked up at that is, well, if that's what the council can do, why can't we do exactly the same? And at that point, we thought, okay, what do we buy? And we don't have a large supply chain as such, but we started buying from within the borough and made a concerted effort when contracts were up and so on, that we looked in the borough first. And the other thing that we decided was we need to take on our own apprentices. And we found it extremely difficult. It was a challenge, to say the least. So we thought, there's a business model here, and Zenith People is a traditional recruitment business. Zenith Training is exactly what it says. So we thought there's a model here. So what we thought was, and we did get our apprentices, but we went to South Tyneside Council and said, we know where the young people are. We think we can attract the young people, and we can feed them into jobs. And but there's no commercial reason for us to get involved. And so South Tyneside said, there's a little pot of money, go away and just do what you say you're going to do. So we ran boot camps, so 3 initial boot camps, and we recruited those onto those boot camps who had the right attitudes and behaviours. We weren't too concerned about qualification, it was the attitudes and behaviours and the interest that they had in particular positions. And those first 3 boot camps, we got every single person into a role. And South Tyneside Council had struggled filling jobs, the SMA community had struggled filling their roles. So we thought, yeah, absolutely. And one little story, just picking up. So on the very first boot camp, there was a 19-year-old girl on there who hadn't had a job. And at 12 years of age, she had a baby. And she got to a situation, fortunately, she had the good parents who were willing to look after the child, but she felt as though it was for her to look after her child. And at 19 years of age, she had applied for jobs, and as soon as employers had heard about the situation, she didn't get a job. For whatever reason, she didn't get a job. And we had her on our boot camp, and we moved her into position, and she's got a fantastic career now. And that's just one story. So just picking up on those points about some of those who are disadvantaged in whatever way, it's important that the community looks at those and tries to do what they can. I'm also director of the Advanced Manufacturing Forum, and within the Advanced Manufacturing Forum, and those members are all over the northeast and beyond. And we're looking at local supply chain. So exactly the same thing occurs within the manufacturing sector, particularly during COVID when, employers couldn't get, or manufacturers couldn't get hold of widgets. It's important that we get a local supply chain. And the other challenge is there aren't the individuals to fill the roles at the moment. So to find someone who is skilled in a particular role is extremely difficult. So from our perspective, the important thing is to bring in apprentices, young people, work with the community. We've taken young people down to Komatsu's of this world, to Nissans and so on, and shown them around. And suddenly they love things that are being made. Every young person loves to see something being made, and that inspires them. And for us, it's just getting that inspiration, and then they can see a goal at the end of it. So, and as far as the pledge is concerned, and coming up to date with the pledge, my view, our view as a business is it's the right thing to do. It's common sense to me that you should do that. Across 2 businesses now, we have 47 staff. And I looked at the figures today, and 23 of those are from within South Tyneside. And 11 of those are either apprentices at the moment or were apprentices with us and have full-time positions. And off that very first boot camp that we had, there was another guy, Stephen, and he'd gone to university, dropped out of university in his second year, much to his parents' delight, and hadn't had a job at all, came to work for us, and now he's one of the managers within Zenith Training, and he's doing a fantastic job. So for me, I think the pledge is all about really just being aware of what is the right thing to do. Mental health has been a challenge during COVID. We are very aware of some of the challenges that some of our staff have had and others out there. Hybrid working, I think, is good, but it shouldn't be totally at home. It's not necessary sometimes to have everyone in the office. So I think there needs to be a balance. So for me, again, it's just about doing the right thing and looking to see what works and, yeah, just taking it forward.
Wonderful, thanks, Alan. Inspirational stuff in there. There's, I love those anecdotal stories. We all learn from those. So thanks for sharing. Any stories for Alan? Any questions for Alan? Or our panel? Because we'll look at that. Bang on time, 6:30. So should we take a few questions before we end, or is Peter calling? What do you think? Anyone? Yeah. Oh, two seconds, Lisa. Right at the back there. Yeah.
Is there an age limit on the help that young people are getting with disabilities, learning difficulties and things like that? Because my son's 26 and he's just been diagnosed with autism, and he's, because we were let down by the school, we asked for help from at the school and the college, and we were let down at every turn. So he suffered terribly with mental health, thinking it was depression and things like that. And we nearly lost him a few times because of it. But like I say, he's just turned 20. Well, sorry, we've just found out he's autistic, high functioning, but he struggles getting a job. So where can he go to get that support that he's talking about?
Okay.
Not at 26. Is everything stopped at a certain age?
Can I just jump in there, sorry? With LS Inclusion and Training Services, we deal a lot with adults who have disabilities. We've just recently become an accredited training centre with NOCN, and we could definitely help your son. So we are currently running vocational courses, getting people in employability. I think it's definitely a conversation we could be having. Yes, great.
Tick.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, and thanks for shouting up. I know it can be a bit daunting sometimes in front of a crowd, so I really appreciate that. Thanks very much. I can't reply. I can't. Eddie.
Is there a central bank then for... You're all looking for volunteers, but is there a central bank where people that want to volunteer can kind of offer the services, a bit like you just said, offering your specific skill service, not just...
Yeah.
I mean, lip picking is important, I do a lot of it.
Is there a hub where people can find out any volunteering opportunities, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a very well-established volunteer network that Andrew will talk to you. Apologies. Yeah, look, there is a volunteering network and organisations that look after that. I guess, and what you'll get there is support, expertise, guidance. I think, though, for us, and the reason we decided to do what we were doing was it was largely focused on our staff and our players, and it was around their commitments and their engagement and using some of the skills and things that they naturally have. So, yes, there is a hub, there is a place you can get that kind of help and support, but equally there's no reason why you can't do it either. I suppose it's... I think for me, I'm really clear that the contributions that people can make should be in their area of greatest strength. And that, I think, then you don't then feel like you're doing it. And so if I can create opportunities for people to do that through the football club and the various different things that we do, then that's exactly what we'll do. And it's about that kind of experience.
So my question is more about, is that on the Pledge website? Is there somewhere on there is?
Yeah, I think Inspire, South Tyneside are really keen to do more, and they've got that kind of sense.
I mean, I would encourage you to engage with Inspire as an organisation that kind of knows what they're doing. Not that we don't, but that's a good protocol, and maybe it's the trick for us that have got specific wants and requirements and expectations of volunteering. Connect with Inspire and make sure they're aware of what we're doing and why.
Eddie, you haven't got any more time to volunteer. Playing chess with all our volunteer community. Well done.
Turnstiles do open 12:30. We need somebody on Turnstile 6:30 if you're around.
I've got lunch at 12 to 12:30. I do think in the morning and the afternoon. So
I'm sure we could rustle you up some lunch.
Kelvin, I'll bring you in a second, Lisa.
Hi, so I'm Lisa from Blue Jay Wellness. So I'm a micro business. Literally all.
That's one for the brewery, all right?
So I'm a micro business in the borough. I live in the borough. My services are for people in the borough. So you mentioned before, Jonathan, about helping small and micro businesses to within that. I'm pledgee. I have been for a long time. I just wondered if you could expand a little bit on how you see that working going forward for small businesses like myself.
Yeah, sure. It's a massive challenge because as we've kind of tried to be optimistic, I'm kind of glass half full and lots of optimism bias, but I think we're all realistic about the environment we're working in. I know that's hard. And like Rory and I talk a lot about the CBI cluster model and trying to make sure that as these new growth sectors, particularly what we're seeing around green energy, which is genuinely kind of fascinating opportunity here, nationally significant shift in what the future economy of this area will be, that it's not just big multinationals that come in and benefit from that growth, but that we see these clusters develop around those growth sectors, whether it's professional services, whether it's supply chain, or whether it's wider sectors such as yours. And again, I think that needs some active facilitation through this kind of pledge network. But for me, it's almost making sure you can keep the plates spinning in the short term as well. And I think that's where I'm interested in the more traditional business support networks and access to finance for SMEs, and making sure that we're playing that part as part of your networks. But no, the big prize is to kind of really mobilise the SME sector within the borough around these growth sectors and make sure that our workforce is ready for it, and can access those opportunities as they come on stream over the next decade, really.
Good stuff. Kelvin?
In closing, I would like to make one statement. That lady mentioned just a couple of minutes ago about her autistic son. And immediately a response came from the floor, we can help. Now, to me, that is the power, A, of networking, and B, of the pledge.
That's lovely.
Wonderful. Thanks for closing us as well, Kelvin.
I want to be it.
No, it is a very good point, Kelvin. Yeah, and just that was my point earlier on, Jonathan. It's up to us to come to the party as well, you know. So thanks for that. Anything else before we go? Well, thanks for closing us, Kelvin. Thanks so much for coming this evening. It's wonderful to see you all here. Thanks to Jonathan Chew, Steve Cam, Angela Todd, I nearly said Alan there, and Alan Metcalf, and Lee for all his hard work, and Misha and all the team at Invest South Tyneside. And we'll see you next time, okay? Thank you so much.
I've never suffered with COVID or anything.
That was good.
In the last however many years.
Nice and pacey, actually, isn't it?